Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Ridge Forrester sat in the dimly lit Forrester Creations office, the weight of the day pressing on his temples. Papers were strewn around his desk, with half-sketched ideas and fabric swatches pinned to a board in the corner. The hum of Los Angeles traffic filtered through the window, a distant reminder of a world that continued to move as his own appeared to come to a stop. His fingers caressed the edge of a photo frame he'd had on his desk for years, a candid photograph of Taylor Hayes, her smile bright, her eyes sparkling with the calm power he'd always loved. He hadn't glanced at it in weeks, if not months, until now. Something in the air felt odd, thick, like the moment before a storm hits. The door creaked open, and Brooke Logan entered, her face pallid and her eyes red-rimmed. Ridge's heart fell. Brooke did not cry easily, especially in this situation. She stood there clutching a piece of paper, her hands quivering. "Ridge," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to tell you something." He stood, instinctively moving toward her. His designer's hands, calloused from years of sketching and pinning, reaching out. "What is it? What is wrong?" She shook her head, tears streaming down, and handed him the paper. It was a medical report with too many statistics and terminology that no one but doctors could understand. But one sentence jumped out as stark and unyielding. Stage 4 liver cancer. Taylor's name was boldly written over it in black ink. Ridge's knees buckled. He grasped the edge of the desk, the world swaying under him. "No," he said, his voice scratchy and barely his own. "This isn't correct. This can't be right." Brooke's fingers gripped his arm, steadying him, but her tears belied her attempt at strength. "I'm so sorry, Ridge. I recently found out." Ridge dropped into his chair, clutching the report, while the room spun. She didn't want anyone to know, but she's been sick for a while. Taylor. His name is Taylor. The lady who had been his support, confidant, and love through so many trials. Was she dying? The word felt alien and unattainable. He'd seen her just last week at a charity dinner, her laughter filling the room and her presence commanding attention as usual. Taylor may have looked fatigued, but she was a warrior. She'd always been. How can this be happening? He remembered their last talk, how she'd held him a little longer than usual, her eyes lingering on his with a melancholy he couldn't understand at the time. "You take care of yourself, Ridge," she replied softly but firmly. He'd dismissed it, figuring she was simply being her regular nurturing self. Now the memory tugged at him, a missed clue, a moment he should have witnessed. "Why didn't she tell you?" he asked, his voice breaking. He looked up at Brooke, seeking her expression for answers. Why wasn't she saying anything? Brooke sat alongside him, her hand resting on his arm. "You know, Taylor." She did not want to burden anyone. She felt she could manage it on her own. Ridge's chest clenched, a sob rising in his throat. "Can you handle it? How could anyone manage this?" He reflected on their history, the years of love, heartache, and reconciliation. Taylor had been his wife, the mother of his children, and the woman who had supported him through scandals and betrayals. Even when their marriage ended, their link never truly dissolved. She was sewn into the fabric of his existence, and he couldn't picture it unraveling. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. "I need to see her." Brooke nodded, wiping her eyes. "She's in the hospital. However, Ridge is not doing well. You have to prepare yourself." Prepare himself. How could he have prepared for this? He retrieved his jacket and keys, the medical report still crumpled in his palm. The journey to the hospital was a blur, with city lights flying past like tears on a windowpane. His thoughts raced with memories. Taylor's laughter as they danced at their first wedding, the way she held their newborn twins, the quiet moments when they sat together, no words necessary, just the comfort of each other's presence. At the hospital, the antiseptic odor hit him like a wall. Nurses moved quickly, their voices low, and their features expressions of professional calm. He located Taylor's room, with the door slightly ajar. He paused, his fingers on the knob, his heart racing. What will he say? How could he confront her with what he knew? He pushed the door open to find her lying in the bed, her face pale against the stark white blankets, tubes and monitors surrounding her, creating a stark contrast to the vivacious lady she had always been. Her eyes widened, and when she saw him, a tiny grin formed on her lips. "Ridge," she said, her voice soft yet warm. He took 2 strides across the room, sinking to his knees beside the bed. He took her hand, being cautious not to damage the 4-line, and pushed it to his lips. "Taylor," he exclaimed, his voice breaking. "Why haven't you told me?" Her smile faded, and she turned aside, her eyes watering. "I did not want you to worry. You have so much on your plate. Forrester, the kids, Brooke." "None of that matters," he responded fiercely. "You matter. You've always been important." She clasped his palm, her grip unexpectedly firm. "I know," she replied softly. "But I wanted to protect you. All of you." He shook his head, tears flowing down his cheeks. "You can't do that, Taylor. You do not get to decide what I can handle. Not this." She glanced at him, her eyes searching his, and he saw the terror she had been suppressing, the burden she had carried alone. "I'm scared, Ridge," she said, her voice scarcely audible. "I didn't want to face this, but I'm running out of time." The words hit him like a physical blow, and he sobbed, leaning his forehead against her hand. "You're not going anywhere," he said, despite knowing it was a lie. "We will fight this. Together." She shook her head, a tear falling down her cheek. "It is too late for that. The doctors have done everything they can." He wanted to argue that there was still a solution. But the truth was in her eyes, in the frailty of her form, and in the quiet resignation of her voice. He felt helpless, which he was not used to. Ridge Forrester, the man who established an empire and confronted every obstacle with confidence, was unable to stop this. They sat silently for a moment, her hand in his, the only sound in the room being the beeping of the monitors. He remembered their children, Thomas, Steffi, and Phoebe, whose memory was remained strong despite her death years earlier. How would they deal with this? How would he inform them that their mother was passing away? "I need you to promise me something,"
Taylor murmured, breaking the silence. Her voice was stronger now, as if she had mustered all of her might. "Promise me that you will take care of them. Thomas and Steffi. They'll need you," he whispered, his voice harsh. "I'm not enough." "You are," she replied firmly. "You have always been enough, Ridge. You are their father, and you're stronger than you realize." He shook his head, tears streaming freely. "I can't do this without you." She reached up, her palm quivering as she stroked his cheek. "You can. And you will. For them. For me." He leaned in, savoring the sensation of her hand on his cheek. He wanted to capture this moment, keep her here, and prevent time from taking her away. But the monitors kept buzzing, the clock kept ticking, and the reality of her disease hung over him like a shadow he couldn't shake. Ridge spent the next few weeks at the hospital, making the most of his time there. He brought sketches to show her, hoping to pique her interest in the designs they had previously cooperated on. He played her favorite music, told her memories from their early days, and held her hand during the long, sleepless nights. But with each passing day, she became weaker, her smiles dwindled, and her voice softened. Brooke and the children paid frequent visits, their sadness reflecting his own. Steffi, ever the fighter, refused to accept the diagnosis and researched remedies and specialists until Taylor gently advised her to stop. Thomas, quieter and more subdued, sat by his mother's side, doodling in a notebook as a means of dealing with the intolerable. Brooke, despite her troubled relationship with Taylor, was a rock of support, coordinating schedules, guaranteeing Taylor's comfort, and keeping Ridge together when he thought he was going to crumble. One evening, as the sun sank over Los Angeles, throwing a golden glow through the hospital window, Taylor summoned Ridge. Her breathing was faint, her eyes tired, but she gazed at him with such clarity that he lost his breath. "I've loved you," she whispered, barely audible, "throughout everything. And I always will." He leaned down, putting his forehead against hers, his tears mingling with her own. "I love you, Taylor. Always." She gave a faint, calm grin and closed her eyes. Moments later, her hand became limp in his, and the monitors stopped working. The room filled with alarms, but Ridge remained motionless. As the nurses hurried in, he grabbed her, sobbing so hard that his entire body shook. Taylor Hayes was gone. The days after were a whirl of sadness and logistics. The funeral was a simple ceremony, attended by relatives, friends, and the extended Forrester and Logan families. Ridge stood at the casket, his children on his side, their expressions etched with grief. He spoke at the service, his voice firm despite the anguish, remembering Taylor's courage, compassion, and undying love for her family. He wasn't sure how he got through it, but he did it for her. Back at Forrester Creations, the office felt empty without her. Ridge found himself staring at the photo on his desk, her grin a reminder of all he'd lost. He plunged himself into his work, designing with a zeal that shocked even him, as if he could keep her alive via the creations they'd once imagined together. But at night, when the world was quiet, the pain returned. He'd sit on his home's balcony, staring at the stars and wondering if she was watching over him. He'd speak to her, sometimes aloud, about the kids, the company, and the hole she'd left in his heart. Steffi and Thomas relied on him, as he did on them. They told stories of Taylor, her eccentricities, her intelligence, and her intense love for them. They smiled through tears, taking comfort in the memories. Brooke was also present, her quiet strength serving as a reminder that life will continue in some way. Months passed into years, and the ache subsided but never vanished. Ridge found methods to celebrate Taylor's legacy, including a foundation in her name, a line of designs inspired by her elegance, and a scholarship for young psychologists, which was her chosen subject. He saw her in Steffi's persistence, Thomas's quiet ingenuity, and the way the family pulled together despite their differences. Ridge learned to cope with the loss, but it never stopped hurting. He carried Taylor with him in the sketches he made, the love he showed his children, and his efforts to be a better man. She had been his heart and compass, and even in her absence, she continued to guide him. And sometimes, when the wind whispered through the trees or a sunset gilded the sky, he could sense her presence, as if she were standing beside him, hand on his shoulder, voice in his ear. "You're enough," she'd say, and he'd smile through his tears, believing her for a brief time. Ridge sat alone in the softly lit room, staring at the silent phone on the coffee table. The day had been long, but the silence seemed even longer. He had felt uneasy in his chest since Taylor had stopped by earlier that week, her smile a little softer, her eyes bearing a melancholy she tried so hard to hide. He wished to believe it was nothing but tiredness, stress, the weight of years and too many fights won and lost. However, when her doctor finally called, his entire world collapsed. Taylor was dying. Liver cancer. The doctor's remarks didn't sound real, yet they hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Ridge felt as if he were hovering outside of his own body, listening to another person's misery. But this was his. That was theirs. He drove to her house, silently, the road blurring beneath him. Every memory appeared to swell and fall on the windshield, her laugh echoing from their brighter years, her hand slipping into his as if it belonged there forever, the numerous times they had parted ways only to reunite again. Their tale was complicated, twisted, and scarred, but it was theirs. And now, every piece of it felt like it was shattering in his hands. When he stepped in, Taylor was seated near the window, her back straight, as if refusing to allow her illness take away her dignity. The dusk streamed across her face, and Ridge could almost believe nothing was wrong. But when she turned her head, he could see the truth in her eyes. "Why haven't you told me?" he muttered, his voice faltering before the tears could come. Taylor's lips quivered, but she did not cry. "Because you've endured enough pain, Ridge." I didn't want to be a burden on your shoulders. I wanted you to have vivid memories of me. Not like this. A surge of fury, regret, and love erupted inside him. He went to his knees beside her chair, squeezing her hand as if it were the only thing holding him together. You do not get to decide that. You don't get to take this from me. If you're going to tackle this, you will not be doing so alone. Do you hear me? Her fingers curled weakly around his, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to cry. Silent tears streamed down her cheeks, and Ridge leaned his forehead into her fingers, feeling helpless. In that moment, he would have given anything to be in her place. The days that followed became a harsh cycle of hospital visits, test findings, hushed chats with doctors, and long nights spent sitting beside Ridge's bed while she slept. Every facet of her decline was a dagger cutting deeper. Her once exuberant laughter faded into pale smiles, her strength dwindled, and her voice became softer. Despite this, she maintained her composure throughout. Ridge stepped into Taylor's hospital room one evening and found her staring out the window, her gaze locked on the stars. She appeared smaller, as if the sickness was consuming her from the inside out. He sat near her and held her hand without speaking. Do you remember, she said quietly after a lengthy pause, the first time we danced together?
It was at the gala.
You despised the tuxedo. Ridge gave out a hollow laugh as his throat tightened. I remember. And you kept telling me I looked attractive, even when I thought I looked stupid. You did look handsome, she added softly. You always have. Even now. He couldn't respond. His chest ached so severely. Taylor rested her head against the pillow and closed her eyes. Ridge, promise me something. Anything. When I leave, don't let this destroy you. Don't allow my absence stop you from living. You've always been the driving force that keeps things moving. Don't let it go out because of me. He shook his head violently, tears flowing down his cheeks. Do not talk like that. I'm not prepared to think of you being gone. I can't. She squeezed his fingers with what little strength she had left. None of us are ever prepared. But sometimes, love requires letting go. The words hit him like a thunderclap. Letting go. How could he let go of the person who had been a part of his soul for so long? Their history was not faultless, but it was authentic. It was them. He wanted to fight, negotiate, and scream at the cosmos for being so cruel. But staring into her eyes, he realized she was seeking for peace, not anguish. Her illness deteriorated over several weeks. Ridge found himself cherishing the tiniest things, brushing her hair when her hands trembled too much, reading her favorite books aloud, and carrying her through the long nights when sleep refused to come. Every moment seemed like a present and a countdown. He remembered the sound of her voice, the feel of her hand in his, and how her smile could brighten a room even when her body was failing. Ridge sat at her bedside one night, his head lying on the mattress, as the rain gently tapped against the window. He had unintentionally fallen asleep. A gentle touch on his hair awoke him, and he raised his head to see her smiling faintly at him. You've always been stubborn, she said. He attempted to laugh, but it caught in his throat. It takes one to know one. Her eyes turned far away, as if she was looking beyond him, into something he couldn't see. Do you think we will find each other again? What happens after this? Ridge tightened his grip on her hand, his heart hurting anew. We've found each other in this existence more times than I can remember. If there is another one, I will locate you there as well. Always. Her smile expanded slightly, and for a brief moment, she reminded him of the Taylor he had fallen in love with so many years before. That's all I need to hear. The next few days were awful. Family and friends arrived to say their final goodbyes, each exiting the room with red eyes and heavy hearts. But Ridge never left. He hesitated to move away, frightened that if he did, she would flee in his absence. And then, one calm morning, as the first light of dawn filtered through the blinds, Ridge felt her hand become still in his. He raised his head to observe her chest rise one more time before it stopped. Her eyes remained closed, and her look was serene, as if she had simply fallen into a dream from which she would never awake. Ridge's body shook with weeping as he put her hand against his lips. The world around him faded into nothing but pain. He knew this moment was coming, but nothing could have prepared him for the silence that followed. It seemed as if a piece of his soul had been ripped away. Ridge walked through life in a cloud for several weeks afterwards. Every room was too silent, and each day seemed too long. He'd find himself reaching for his phone to call her, only to realize there would be no answer. He would awaken in the night, hoping to hear her voice, only to be met with stillness. Despite the terrible anguish, he remembered her words. "Do not let this destroy you. Don't allow my absence stop you from living." It was the most difficult vow he had ever made, yet he held to it like a lifeline. Slowly, painfully, he began to find tiny ways to honor her, planting her favorite flowers in the garden, listening to music she enjoyed, and telling his children stories about her humor and courage. Every recollection represented both a pain and a healing. He knew he could never stop loving her. That kind of love did not evaporate. It became a part of him, imprinted on every heartbeat. And, while the ache never went away completely, it served as a reminder of the lady who had influenced his life in ways that would never fade. Ridge would sit outside on quiet nights, whispering into the darkness as the stars shone overhead. "I will find you again," document. "No matter where you are." And in those moments, he could almost feel her presence, soothing and steadfast, telling him that love could withstand even the most horrible fate.